In last week's video, I took you to the Great Wall at Jinshanling and explained to you many special features of the Great Wall as a defense system. This week, let's go to a section of the Great Wall by the Bohai Sea. It's another masterpiece of General Qi Jiguang.
Hello, I'm Yan Yan. I'm in Qinhuangdao, Hebei province. Most people have the impression that the Chinese Great Wall was built on mountains. Today, I'm in a section of the Great Wall that's built by the sea on a beach. It's part of a place called Shanhai Pass, and today I'll tell you the story. This part of the Great Wall, which is about 22 meters long, is the part that really dips into the sea. It was originally built with 9 layers of rocks like this.
This section of the Great Wall is nicknamed Old Dragon's Head. It was destroyed by a national military force that we call Eight Nation Aliens during late Qin Dynasty in 1900. In 1990s, the Old Dragon's Head was rebuilt. All rocks on the 4th layer from bottom were the original rocks found on the ruin of the Old Dragon's Head. There is a watchtower in Old Dragon's Head.
If you have watched my video about the Great Wall, you should be very familiar with watchtowers. But this one is really special, with a beach view.
You might wonder, how could a fortress built on soft sands stand the big waves of the sea?
Researchers later on found out that this part of the Great Wall was not built on the beach. It was built on a branch from the main mountains. They cleared the mountain to make a flat foundation, and they used the rocks to build the Great Wall.
Not far away from the beach, there are hills. Part of the hill stretches into the sea.
On this side of the Great Wall, we can still see the remains of the rocks. This is what really the Great Wall was built on. This is a very important geographical point in China. The vast land behind me, to the east and to the north of this point, is called Northeast China. It's a very special place in China. People there are very funny. The dialects are contagious. I'll take you guys there in the future. But first, remember this point, the Shanhai Pass.
You've seen this picture in last week's video. To the east of Beijing, between Mount Yan and the sea, there is a narrow passage. That is the Shanhai Pass. It literally means Mountain Sea Pass. It's been a strategic point for centuries. In order to close out this narrow pass, fortress was built as early as the 6th century. In the 16th century, General Qi Jiguang fortified this pass and built a defense system here. The Old Dragon's Head was only part of it. First, there was a garrison by the Old Dragon's Head. In the Ming Dynasty, the soldiers stationed at the Great Wall not only had to perform military training, but also had to farm and produce food for themselves. In addition to a garrison, going north, a military city was built to station more army. It's the first time I take you to a Chinese ancient town. I'll use this opportunity to introduce common features of cities in ancient China. First, the shape of the city is square, with rammed earth or bricks built city walls. The streets are straight, parallel to city walls. If you go to Beijing, you'll find out this feature remains in the main structure of the city. The city wall is usually surrounded by a deep white moat with drawbridges over it. In the geographical center of the city usually stands a tall tower called a bell tower or drum tower, sometimes both. The tower was used to inform the residents of timing. Also, because the tower was usually much taller than the surroundings, it was a good place to observe any incidents or attacks. There is a gate in each side of the city wall. And for this town in the Shanhai Pass, the eastern gate is the most important and the most fortified one. This plaque on the eastern gate boasts the Shanhai Pass as the #1 pass under heaven.
The gate behind me is the most important here. It's on the east side of the wall. Its name is guarding the east gate because it is facing the east where the threat was coming from. To the west of Shanhai Pass is Beijing, the capital of China during Ming Dynasty. So technically, it was guarding Beijing.
Outside this gate, there is an enclosure. It's a common feature of ancient city gates. If enemies break into the enclosure, the defense inside could close both the city gate and the gate of the enclosure to lock the enemies in the small space and attack them from the fortress above. There was a border market near the gate for Han Chinese and the nomadic people to exchange goods. The goods Han Chinese sold included rice, grain, salt, sugar, pork, vegetables and fruit, silk, cotton, paper, and so on. The nomadic people would use horses, sheep, cattle, leather, and fur in exchange for those products. Han Chinese were not allowed to sell iron products, including ironworks, in the fear that the nomadic people would melt them to make weapons. The policy was similar to today's weapon embargo. Border markets were very important for the peace of the border because nomadic people relied on the food that Han Chinese produced. Every time the Chinese central government closed border markets, the nomadic people would raid the border towns. From the street in the ancient town, a mountain is visible in the north. It's called Mount Jiaoshan. It's technically part of Mount Yan. In the mountain, there is more Great Wall. This section is called Jiaoshan Great Wall. It was not open to public when I was at the Shanhai Pass, but I got some footage from the internet. The Great Wall stretches from the plain to the mountain. On top of the Jiaoshan Great Wall, the Shanhai Pass is in full view. During the Ming Dynasty, the Shanhai Pass was one of the most heavily fortified passes in China. Who was the defense system guarding against? In last week's video, I told you that Jinshanling Great Wall was built against the Mongols. At the same time, in the northeastern China, another nomadic people called Manchu prospered. So in the Ming Dynasty, we had the Mongols in the north and the Manchu in the northeast. They both wanted to expand their territories. What modern country is in your mind that has a similar geopolitical situation as China in the Ming Dynasty was facing? In the end, the Shanhai Pass defense system did not stop the Manchu. In the 17th century, the Manchu army broke into the pass with the help of a Ming general, marched all the way to Beijing, and established the last empire of China, the Qing dynasty. During his visit to the Shanhai Pass, in memory of his family's history of entering the pass to establish the Qing dynasty, Emperor Kangxi of the Qing dynasty emphasized the importance of benevolent ruling. For an empire with a corrupted government that did not care about the welfare of its people, no matter how formidable its fortress was, the fortress could not stop the falling of the empire. The Shanhai Pass could not save the Ming Dynasty. In next week's video, I'll be in Beijing, continuing the story between Han Chinese and the nomadic people. I'll tell you the 400 years history of Beijing under the ruling of nomadic people and take you to explore the traces of this history in the city. I'm Yan Yan. I upload a video every Saturday about my travel in China. Subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next week in Beijing.